Hi guys, thank you so much for 1000 subs. As of making this video, I've never really thought that I'd reach this milestone with you all, and I feel like a broken record at this point, but I'm so grateful for all of the love and support for the channel. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. In any case though, I'm back with another Genshin Impact video, and today we'll be going over an updated DPS Ningguang guide because I thought this would be a fun video to make and because I promised to make another guide very soon, so here it is. Yay! So Ningguang is a really great and incredibly strong Geo DPS character, and I wanted to make a guide for her because miHoYo recently buffed her in 1.4. Specifically, they changed how her charge attack works, so it's now more fluid, as well as the fact that they changed her burst, so if you're close to an enemy, it now no longer goes into random directions, and it's much more consistent at targeting enemies. In this guide, I'll be going over tips as well as recommended weapons, artifacts, team comps, and more to build Ningguang as a main DPS. So for general tips, it's important to learn how to animation cancel your normal attack and charge attacks with Ningguang. How this is done is by holding down a directional key while doing a normal attack or charge attack. By doing so, you can maximize your DPS output and have your attacks be more fluid overall. Another tip I have is remembering that when you hit a normal attack on an enemy, you gain Star Jades, or these little rocks floating around Ningguang, and if you have 3 of them following you, when you use your charge attack, it doesn't consume any stamina. So a good habit to develop when using Ningguang can be using your normal attack 3 times, and then using a charge attack. So enough tips, now on to weapons. Ningguang is a catalyst user, and luckily there are a lot of good catalysts for her, both free-to-play friendly and not so free-to-play friendly options. For free-to-play players, out of the 3 craftable catalysts, the one I recommend the most for DPS Ningguang is the Frostbearer, which is the catalyst recipe you unlock after finishing Dragonspine. The reason why I recommend this over the Mappa Mare or the prototype Amber is because the secondary stat on the Frostbearer, which is attack percent, is much more beneficial overall compared to the 2 other craftable weapons. Also, the passive can be used if you run a cryo sub DPS or support character alongside Ningguang, such as Kaya, Ganyu, or Diona. Another good free-to-play friendly option is the Blackcliff Amulet, which can be obtained by using Star Glitter at the Paimon shop. You get crit damage as a secondary stat, which is very useful, so you can use a crit rate circlet, and the passive is okay. The passive is not as useful against bosses, but the attack stats that you can get can be good for when Ningguang deals with a lot of enemies. Other 4-star weapon options are either barred by the gacha or the battle pass, and one of the best 4-star gacha options for Ningguang is the Widsith. You get crit damage as a secondary stat, and 2 out of the 3 buffs that you can get from the passive are very useful, specifically the 60% attack buff or the 48% elemental damage buff. The only one that isn't really good is the additional 240 elemental mastery, as all that does is increase the strength of the crystallized shields that Ningguang makes. Another good 4-star is the Eye of Perception. A lot of people sleep on this weapon and don't think it's good, but I think it's a good weapon as you get attack percent as a secondary stat, and the passive is okay. But overall, this is a very solid weapon option if you don't have another catalyst or are unable to make the craftable weapons for Ningguang. If you can afford the Battle Pass, the Solar Pearl is an amazing option for Ningguang. You get crit rate as a secondary stat, which is always very helpful for when building for crit, and the passive lets you get a 20% damage bonus to your elemental skill and burst when hitting a normal attack, and vice versa. It's important to note though that the passive doesn't work on your charge attacks, so just keep in mind that your charge attacks won't be as strong. For 5-star options, all the 5-star catalysts are very good for Ningguang, as they all have high base attacks and generally very good passives. If you have the luxury to choose between all the catalysts, I think Ningguang's best in slot is Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds. You get crit rate as a secondary stat, and the passive lets Ningguang get an 8% elemental damage bonus, which can stack up to 4 times. It lets your Ningguang become a hyper carry, but if you don't have Lost Prayer, Skyward Atlas and Memory of Dust are still very good 5-star options, and if you don't have any 5-star weapons, again, the 4-star weapons that I've mentioned earlier are very good options for Ningguang too. And now for the hardest part of building any character, and that's artifacts. For the most balanced build that you can use on Ningguang, I recommend using 2-piece Gladiator's Finale and 2-piece Archaic Petra. You get 18% additional attack from the 2-piece Glad set, and then 15% geo damage bonus from the 2-piece Petra set. This lets Ningguang have 90% geo damage bonus at level 90 and with level 20 artifacts. An alternative to this build, if you're unable to get a good 2-piece Glad set, is running 2-piece Noblesse Oblige and 2-piece Archaic Petra. You get 20% damage bonus to your Elemental Burst with the Noblesse set, and once again you get an additional 15% geo damage bonus from the 2-piece Petra set. Another build you could potentially run for DPS Ningguang is a 4-piece Retracing Bolide set. From the 4-piece set, if you're protected by a shield, you get an additional 40% damage bonus to your normal attack as well as charge attacks. This is a good alternative if you want your Ningguang to be sort of a hyper carry on the field as much as possible. For main stats, all of her builds use the same main stats, and that's attack percent on the Sands, geo damage bonus on the Goblet, and crit rate or crit damage on the Circlet, depending on what you need more. A good rule of thumb to follow when building for crit is a 1-to-2 ratio, so this can be 50% crit rate and 100% or more crit damage in order for your crits to be meaningful. For substats, the best substats for DPS Ningguang in order of priority are crit rate or crit damage, attack percent, and then flat attack. Crit rate and crit damage speak for itself. Attack percent and flat attack is very useful for Ningguang, as her normal attack, charge attack, elemental skill, and burst all scale off of attack. Okay substats on Ningguang are energy recharge and elemental mastery. Energy recharge is only okay and not really necessary on Ningguang, as her burst costs only 40 particles. This means that she gets her burst back really quickly. Elemental Mastery, on the other hand, is only okay because all it does is increase the strength of her crystallized shields. The avoid at all cost substats are, once again, HP percent, defense percent, flat HP, and flat defense. I know it's incredibly difficult because artifact grinding is hell and painful, but try to avoid these substats as they don't benefit Ningguang that much. In terms of talent level priority, generally you want to get all of her talent levels at 6 and then decide from there which talent to use your weekly boss materials on. If you're using Ningguang as main DPS and she's on the field as much as possible, I'd prioritize her normal attack first, then her elemental burst, and then her elemental skill. However, if you're using Ningguang as a burst DPS or on a quick swap team, I'd prioritize her burst first, then normal attack, and then her skill. For constellations, is C0 Ningguang good? I personally think so, and I think she's viable even at C0, but I do have to admit that she does get better with constellations. If you're aiming for constellations for Ningguang, I think at most C2 is all you need. C1 lets her normal attacks AoE and do more damage, and C2 is a reset. This means that if her wall breaks down, the cooldown resets completely. It's super good. Her C3 and C5 just increase the level of her skill and burst, and C4 is useless at the moment as all it does is increase the elemental resistance of teammates. Not that good. Her C6 on the other hand lets her get 7-star jades after using her burst, and just overall, C0 is viable. If you're aiming for constellations, C2 is best to stop, and if you want more than C2, just get C6, and yes, that's it. Now on to team comps. Generally, the best team comps for Ningguang is running her with another Geo character. This can be Zhongli, Albedo, Geo Traveler, or Noelle. You benefit greatly from the buff Geo Resonance, which is when protected by a shield, you get 15% damage buff, and dealing damage overall decreases enemies' Geo resistance by 20% for 15 seconds. This is really strong. So pairing Ningguang with another Geo character and the rest can be fill for the team is the way to go. Other than pairing Ningguang with another Geo character, you can run her with any off-field support or healer, so it just depends on who you have built, but feel free to use whoever you want. I only have a few examples of team comps, both free-to-play friendly and not so free-to-play friendly. For an entirely free-to-play friendly team comp, I have Ningguang as main DPS, Noelle as sub DPS, Shanling as support, and Barbara as healer. This is a double Geo team that synergizes really well together. Noelle provides Geo Resonance and consistent shields with her elemental skill, Shanling provides off-field support with her elemental skill as well as burst, and Barbara helps to heal. Also, if you have Barbara with a Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers, she can buff Ningguang with the additional attack percent that weapon gives. Overall, this is a very solid team that helps to support Ningguang and allows her to be on the field dealing as much damage as possible. Another free-to-play friendly team comp that I have is a double Geo double Pyro team. Specifically, Ningguang as main DPS, Geo Traveler as sub DPS, Shanling as support, and Bennett as healer. This is a very strong team that benefits from Geo Resonance as well as the 25% attack buff that Pyro Resonance provides. Geo Traveler helps to generate particles for Ningguang, Shanling once again provides off-field support with her burst and skill, and Bennett provides heals as well as buffs Ningguang with his elemental burst. Overall, this is a very strong team that makes Ningguang become a turret and hit like an absolute truck. One last team comp that I have, which is also a not so free-to-play friendly team comp, is Ningguang as main DPS, Zhongli as sub DPS, Shanling as support, and Bennett as healer. This is similar to the double Geo double Pyro team I mentioned earlier. You receive the same benefits and buffs that Shanling and Bennett provide, but the key difference is subbing out Geo Traveler for Zhongli. Zhongli provides consistent shield with his elemental skill. In addition, his pillar resonates Geo damage when next to any Geo construct, such as Ningguang's Jade Screen. Also, Zhongli's shield lowers the elemental resistance and physical resistance of nearby enemies by 20%. He's an insane sub DPS to pair with Ningguang, and personally my favorite Geo character to pair with her overall. That's it for this video. I hope this guide was helpful for anyone looking to build Ningguang as a main DPS, and I just want to say thank you guys again for 1k subs. You're all amazing, and I'm just incredibly happy that the channel has received so much growth as well as love and support. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!